Hi everyone. In this lecture, we will build the environment that runs Nginx, MariaDB, PHP, FPM in the containers. And we will use the bitnami images. You can find more about their images on their GitHub website. It makes our life much easier to set up the environment. Okay, let's get started. We will put our code for this project in the folder called app. It seems I already have it, and I will just delete it and start over again. Create the new folder in the VS Code editor. Now, app. And the next, we will add the Docker Compose file. I will just copy the prepared content. And I want it on the top level, so I move it up. And the new file, docker compose.yaml, paste the content. As you can see, we have 3 services configured for our application. One is the Nginx, the other is the MariaDB, and the last one is the PHP FPM. And for each service, we tell the Docker which image to use. If the appointed image is not available, it will try to pull from the Docker registry. And also, for the other configurations, environment, volumes, ports, this we already seen when we use the Docker desktop to run the image. You see, when we run the image, we click on run, and the options here, the configurations on this page are the same as we specified for each service. So in this Docker Compose, we specified a few volumes, and we need, before we bring up these services, we need to create these files and directories. So let's create the app static folder first. App and the new folder static. It will hold the HTML files for the Nginx server, and another is MariaDB data. And also for the PHP file, it's in the app and PHP folder. We also saved the Nginx configuration for our application in the config folder. So we create the config folder, and the file name is nginx app.conf. New file. For the content, we copy over the prepared one. Okay, this. As you can see, that for the fastest, one thing I need to point out is that for the fast CGI path configuration, I configured the host PHP FPM, which is the same as the what we given here in the Docker compose file. And the port is 9000 because this image exposes 9000. So let's try to bring up our applications and do some testing in our local machine's browser. So first, we need to bring up the terminal for the Windows user. Oh, let's first remove the services I already I'm running. So click the screen. For the Windows user, please bring up the WSL terminal, and we, instead of come to the Docker desktop images page and bring up each container, we just need one single command. And the command is this: docker compose up. Please make sure we are in the root directory of our application, and we key in docker compose up. As you can see, our application is up, and we check, go to the Docker desktop. Oh, please, before execute this command, please start your Docker desktop. Okay, let's go back to the Docker desktop, and you see our application is running. The containers, it has 3 containers. And let's Nginx. Oh, but this one is, it seems it doesn't work right. Let's have a look. Config Nginx. Oh, the file name, it doesn't looks right. So we need to rename Nginx, because in the Docker compose here this is Nginx my app, but here we missed N in the front, and we need to start again. So we remove this service and run the command again. This time it looks good. Okay, you can see the 3 containers are up and running. And to test the Nginx server, we will create an HTML file in the app static folder. We create my.html, and it will print out this sentence on the screen if everything works. Let's open the browser and go to, okay, I will open a new tab, localhost, my.html. As you can see, the sentence is printed in the browser. So our Nginx server works. Next, we will check to see whether the PHP and database container works as we expected. To do that, we will create a file called the my PHP, and I've prepared the content. I just copy over. New file, my.php. As you can see, we first connect to the MariaDB, and second, we print out the database version, and then we print out the records. So the host, the database, let's have a check. Okay, we need to create the database and insert the records. To do that, we go back to the Docker containers page and go into the MariaDB, open in terminal, and log in. To log in, we need to have the root password. We copy from the Docker compose file, Mysql. Right-click to paste the password. Enter to log in. And for the my PHPs, for the database name, I would like to use this one. So let's see the statement to create the database and use. And we copy this statement to the Docker MariaDB container. We just right-click to paste and enter to execute the last circle statement. Let's have a check. Select from country. So we have 4 records inserted. Okay, next we will need to use the PHP file to access the database and fetch the records. One thing I need to point out is that for the host name, again, I use the MariaDB. This is the same as the one we specified here, MariaDB, in the Docker compose file. Let's have a last check. Port, DB, root password, this one. Let's copy over again to make sure it's identical from the Docker compose file. Password, it looks right, but paste it anyway. Okay, our PHP file is prepared. Let's go back to the browser to check whether it works or not. Local host. And the file name, I think it's my.php. My.php. As you can see, it prints out the DB version and the records. Okay, in this lecture, we learned how to use the Bitnami images to set up the local environment, developing environment for our application. To share this, the identical configuration with your team members, you just need to commit this directory into the GitHub or into the repository, and they only need to run a single command, docker compose up. Then they will have the identical environment. Okay, see you in the future lectures.